Hey guys, Debo here. Just decided to, be getting a lot of questions about this on Twitch TV, why I don't make videos and stuff like that. But I was like, why don't I make videos? So here I am. This is going to be first couple videos in a set of series, all involving the Witch Doctor class to help educate any basically person that says, hey, I want to play Witch Doctor. I want to be able to come into my videos, check them out, and be like, oh, okay, hey, I learned something, and then I can apply that to my Witch Doctor. So I figure the biggest thing we need to go over first is skills, what things are going to be useful and what things might not be useful. So let's just go ahead and just get into it. Pull up my skill list here. Okay, so starting off with Witch Doctor, we're going to be going off on the primary spells. Witch Doctor has, of course, four primary spells: Poison Darts, Corpse Sputters, Plague Toad, and Firebomb. The first one, Poison Dart, usually a lot of people like to use in earlier levels or leveling the Witch Doctor from like 160. There are a lot of useful ones. Most specifically, a lot of people that run the Poison Darts are it's going to be Splinters. Basically, which gives you three shots, deals 6% weapon damage each. Three shots shoots out for a total of 108% weapon damage. Flaming Dart as well, which ignites enemies for 108% weapon damage as fire at once. Regarding to Numbing Dart, Spine Dart, and really Snake to the Face, not a lot of players really utilize this a lot. Uh, there's a lot of different abilities that the Witch Doctor can use to slow the target, so usually no one really takes the Poison Dart. Spine Dart, even though it generates mana, a lot of people like to alternate with the Corpse Spiders version of this, which is called Widow Spiders, which grant you back the mana. So a lot of people don't really take this out. In terms of spine darts, and Snake to the Face has a chance to stun an enemy for 1.5 seconds. I've seen a couple Witch Doctors use that in PvP, but really not really that useful. So if you're looking towards Poison Dart and you want to know what runes are pretty much worthwhile to take, Splinters and Flaming Dart are pretty much your best options. Alright, moving over to Corpse Spider tab. Now, this is pretty interesting. Corpse Spider has a lot of uses. It's actually very good in PvP and PvP. I'm sorry, I said PvP and PvP. PvP and PvE. Leaping Spiders is pretty good because you can stand pretty far back, chuck out a bunch of spiders while your pets are tanking the enemies, and do a lot of damage from very far. You really don't have to be close to the enemy, and the spiders jump a pretty far distance, where you don't even have to be even sometimes even close around the same room. I mean, there's been numerous times I've been another room away, tossing spiders into another room, and then the spiders leap to the enemy and basically attack them and do all the damage for you. This is useful in PvE in case like you're maybe going for a glass cannon build and you have like a lot of DPS, but you don't want to be anywhere near on the screen because you can't take any damage, or just in general if you like the leaping spiders attack. It also works very well in PvP. It's a very strong ability in terms of when you're dueling against somebody, a Witch Doctor can be off screen, lob a bunch of these bad boys across the map, and he will still be able to do damage to you, whether he is outside of a room or around a corner. So Leaping Spiders is definitely it's a pretty solid take for Corpse Spiders, but like I said, you're probably going to be using the skill a lot more in PvP, because in PvE there's a little bit better utility and other options for the Corpse Spiders tree that you pretty much can use. Spider Queen, it used to be very good because it used to trigger Vision Quest passive ability. Like just by having her out, it would trigger, and as long as she was out, it would indefinitely keep the passive regeneration up. However, Blizzard fixed that, so Spider Queen is pretty much at the bottom of the list right now. I mean, she's okay in the terms of the sense that when you cast her for 15 seconds, she's going to go out there and do her damage, but the radius of her damage and kind of where she wants to go is kind of random, and she's kind of slow. So hopefully in the future, Blizzard will come back to the skill and try to improve it, but until then, it's pretty much not that great to take. Widowmakers, you're actually going to see a lot of Witch Doctors, especially the ones that have high-end DPS that take spells such as Zombie Bears, or I'm sorry, Zombie Bears, and or they like to go Acid Cloud. This is the way they get a lot of their mana back, because when they're casting a lot of those high-end spells that do a massive damage, they run out of a lot of mana, so they'll go ahead and pick up Widowmakers to basically get back that mana when they run out, or they basically just don't have anything to cast, or as an additional source of damage. But predominantly, you're going to see Widowmakers into most Witch Doctor builds that favor high DPS builds that either use Acid Cloud or Bears. And this is just simply to get back their mana. Medusa Spiders. I like this skill a lot. I like this rune a lot. It works really well in PvP and it also does work really pretty well in PvE. The damage isn't as great as, say, Leaping Spiders, and it doesn't really have the great utility as such as Widowmakers. But the cool thing about Medusa Spiders is that once you start lobbing them on somebody, a target, whether it be PvP or in PvP on a monster, bosses, or elites, it used to be really good back in the day in group parties because you used to be able to spam this bad boy, and all the spiders would actually surround the enemy, locking them down because you got all these spiders hitting on the target, slowing them in the first place, and then plus you have the chance to slow the enemy's movement by 60% with every single attack. So, like I said, it's an interesting rune to run. If you like to use it, I would say, by all means, you should definitely go ahead and look into it. But like I said, you're probably going to want to take Widowmakers or Leaping Spiders, or even like the next coming up one is Blazing Spiders, which actually is it really doesn't do anything in terms of like utility, helping the group, or being able to cast it from very far away. But the thing about Blazing Spiders is just mostly 156% weapon damage as fire. So, I mean, if you have a couple things like a Taurasha set and you have anything that improves, like I say in the necklace, you get increased fire damage, or you're going for the two, I do believe it's a two-piece set. Let me double check. Yeah, like if you're going for the two-piece set, which increases fire damage, it's a pretty okay skill to have for a for the Corpse Spiders rune, but predominantly, like I said, you're going to be seeing Medusa Spiders and you're going to be seeing Leaping Spiders. I'm sorry, Widowmakers and Leaping Spiders on a lot of Witch Doctor's keys. PvP is going to have mostly Leaping Spiders and Medusa, while Widowmakers will be on a lot of the PvE builds. Alright, let's go ahead and run to one of the most lackluster primary trees, which is the Plague of Toads. I'm going to be honest, no one uses Explosive Toads, Toad Effusionist, or Adeling Toads, or Toad Infinity. The one solid one in this is Rain of Toads. It causes toads to rain from the sky, 130% weapon damage, is poison enemies in the area over 2 seconds. It is an extremely powerful ability, but I will tell you one key thing. If you want to use a lot of the Plague of Toads, any weapon that basically causes frost damage, it will freeze the targets, but I would have to highly advise to you is if you're going to use this skill, do not, and I repeat, do not use an Echoing Fury, because with the 11.1% chance, or just any chance, I've seen them go up to 20% chance to fear on hit, when it fears on hits the target, it's gonna run out of the radius of your Rain of Toads. So what do I mean by that? Basically, if I start casting Rain of Toads, as soon as this damage starts being applied on the monsters, yeah, they're taking a lot of damage, but the fear effect is gonna have them cause them to run around the screen, and then you're gonna have to try to cast frogs on them while they run around the screen, and that's really the big thing about the Rain of Toads is that you want your target to stay in one area. You really don't want them to leave that specific area. And like I said, while casting this ability, they will run away if you have the wrong type of weapon. If it causes any type of confusion, any type of fear, any effects like that, they're going to run away. If it has stun effect, then that's great because it locks them in place. If you have any effect on a weapon that causes, like, let's say, freezing, that's also good. But you want to stay away from any weapon that actually has fear on it if you're actually going to use Plague of Toads. And basically, for Plague of Toads, everybody's going to be using Rain of Toads. So that is something that want to consider if you are running the skill. It is a very good skill. I even seen it worked in PvP a little bit, but predominantly PvE, and is really good in Ubers. But like I must repeat, you want to be wary of the fact that if it has any type of fear effect on it, because you will make the mobs run away. Alright. Now, coming up to the last primary ability, Firebomb. This skill was always pretty much talked about as, I don't know if it's really that great. Poison Dart used to be really dominant up until I think patch 1.04, because they did a lot of dramatic changes to the Witch Doctor classes. 1.04 or 1.05, one of the two. But basically, you started to see Poison Dart start falling off because a lot of Witch Doctors used to use Poison Dart with Splinters. That was basically the best damage you can get out of a primary ability. But now that we actually have Firebomb, it actually opened up a lot of different options. And especially because they increased the damage in 1.04 or 1.05, I forget which patch was which. And it basically made it very competitive to Poison Darts. But the thing about the Firebomb is it does AoE damage. Now, in terms of what you like to use for Firebomb, I would advise, if you're going to use Firebomb, the big ones are going to be Flash Fire. We're also going to be using Ghost Bomb. Some people like to use Fire Pit. Some people like to use roll the bones. That's that is also an alternative that some people have. I know leveling up people use flash fire rolling the bones. Um, Pyro guys, fire pit, kind of like Lester. Your primary ones that you're gonna use are gonna be ghost bomb, flash fire, and roll of the bones. Um, Flash fire, like I says, rather than exploding area damage, each firebomb can mount up to 6 additional targets. Damage is reduced by 15% per bounce. That's actually really good because it works pretty much like a dot. It bounces up to the guaranteed 6 total targets. It's a good one when you're leveling basically from 1 to 60. But in terms of later game options, I still believe that Ghost Bomb and even Roll the Bones is a little bit better. Speaking of rolling the bones, it allows up the skull to bounce 2 times. That's a fairly decent one, but like I said, the roll of bones, it really doesn't hit. I mean, it does a good, decent amount of AoE damage in the first area, but it really just can't do the damage potential or hit as many targets as a decent, properly cast flash fire or a ghost bomb. Fire Pit, lackluster. It creates a pool that deals 36% weapon damage as fire over 3 seconds. I've seen some people use that, but it's really just not one of the more popular ones for the Firebomb. Neither is Pyrogeist, which creates a flame of fire that speeds at 640% weapon damage as fire over 6 seconds. The one thing, Pyrogas actually has a lot of potential, but as you see, it says you may only have one Pyrogas active at a time. Um, so that really cuts the potential out of it. If you could have multiple ones, then that would be great, but then the damage potential would be quite horrendous because you could stack basically 3 of them on top of each other and the enemies would be taking an absurd amount of damage. So I kind of understand why Blizzard went ahead and did this. Now, my favorite one is the Ghost Bomb. And I know a lot of people like to argue, well, Ghost Bomb's not necessarily the best, but in my opinion, I think it is. Basically, what happens with Ghost Bomb is when you cast the spell, not only does it do the traditional, like I'll show you right here, if you guys can see that little effect right there. When you do Ghost Bomb, it's going to do the 110% damage as AoE for any enemies within 8 yards of the initial blast radius area. So you see where the ghost is coming up? In that 8 yards, they're going to take 110% weapon damage. But the cool thing about the Ghost Bomb, it does an additional 30% weapon damage as fire damage to all enemies within 28 yards. So basically, what does that mean? Any enemy that's caught within the 8-yard radius is not only going to take the 100% 10% weapon damage within 8 yards, they're also going to take an additional 30% weapon damage as fire damage. We'll say it's going to be a second hit that occurs after the first initial hit. So what does this mean? Basically, anything within 8 yards of the initial explosion is going to take 140% weapon damage, where everything on the outskirts of this huge radius is going to take only 30. And that's very nice because it also triggers the extra life on hit effect, and just in terms of DPS, it's really good. You could be pretty far back when casting Firebomb, and it hits everything in a group cluster and does a lot of AoE damage. And like I said, it's just preferably, in my opinion, it's one of the primary abilities I like to use because it gives you a good AoE damaging ability, hits multiple targets, hits the targets twice, can be cast far away, and depending on what your DPS and attack speed is, and your critical chance when you crit damage, it can really pulse out some monstrous amounts of damage. Even with my Witch Doctor, who only has 196 DPS unbuffed, only has 24% crit chance and 260% critical hit damage, I crit anywhere from the numbers of about 180,000 damage, all the way up to 340k damage, depending on how many buffs I have on me. One thing that is pretty nice is I actually like to get a lot of attack speed on my Witch Doctor. So basically, when I'm spamming this ability, it actually can clear out a lot of waves very fast. And it can shut down a lot of the monster waves that are coming at us. Like I said, some people don't really like to use the Ghost Bomb. They still think Flash Fire Roll the Bones is a little bit better. I would highly advise trying the Ghost Bomb because the thing about Flash Fire, it only goes up to 6 targets. I mean, it says in the description right here, it bounces to 6 additional targets. Ghost Bomb, it doesn't matter how many targets are within radius. Whoever you catch inside the Ghost Bomb, they're going to take massive amounts of damage. But I must be very honest about it. Do not use it in PvP. It's really not that great. There's a lot of other better options, whether it be poison darts or even corpse spiders. But in terms of PvE skill, I would have to say out of all the primary abilities that a Witch Doctor can use, you're predominantly probably going to be using, at least from levels 1 through 60, you'll probably be using Splitters or Firebomb. You're going to be using Splinter's runes for the poison darts. You're going to be using Fireball with Flash, Fire, Roll, Bones. Once you get level 60, you might be using a little bit of Ghost Bomb. You might be using Splinters. At level 60, some Witch Doctors still do. And when you're going for some of the higher end builds, such as Bears or Acid Cloud, you're going to be using the Widowmakers to get back a lot of that mana that you lose within fighting. So in terms of the primary skill abilities, like I said, here they are out. Poison Dart, Corpse Spiders, Plague of Toads, Firebomb. PvE, you're going to be using a lot of Poison Darts and Firebomb. PvP, you're going to be using the Corpse Spiders a lot. And then as a Plague of Toads, depending on what type of build you'd like to use, I see a lot of Witch Doctors that have high DPS actually use this build, use the Plague of Toads with Rain of Toads and Uber-like settings. So like I said, hopefully this basically gives you a basic idea of the primary skills that Witch Doctor has and what they're all each used for. And you'll be able to use this information in terms of when you're building your Witch Doctor. So when you're thinking about the different builds that you want to use, you can think what type of play style it is and which ones are considered the best and which are the most popular ones. Or you might find a use for some other skills or other things for primary abilities for the Witch Doctor. So if you guys are out there and you got any interesting comments about the primary skills for Witch Doctor, leave it in the comments. Just let me know, because like I said, there might be a certain use, like say for instance, Toad of Hugeness or Adeling Toads that I don't know about. But basically, what I just try to do is go over the primary skills, is just what skills are really relevant to today's Witch Doctors and upcoming patch of 1.06, which is live, and then the upcoming patch of 1.07, which is coming out. And what ones we're actually using a lot. If you actually want to see what a lot of the other Witch Doctors are actually using currently, you can go on anything like Diablo 3 Progress. You go in through the forums of Diablo fans or even Blizzard's website, and you'll see a lot of the Witch Doctors, even if you just look at the profiles and what they're using. Like I said, the nicest one is Diablo 3 Progress, because they can actually tell you by percentages what are the most popular primary skills for the Witch Doctor. But anyways, I always appreciate you guys' comments and checking out my video. Again, my name is Debo. Text me at twitch.tv /SPSDebo. I do a lot of streaming with my Witch Doctor, so if you guys have any general questions, you can guys send me messages there. Or like I said, just leave me a message down in the comment. As always, I'm your favorite Witch Doctor, at least I hope I am, Debo. And this is basically my tutorial on primary skills for the Witch Doctor. Look for more videos to come, and thank you guys for checking out the video.